Welcome again. Thank you so much for being still here. It's been 2 really intense days, and it's really great that you're still here. And I love the venue too. This is the first time I'm here too, because I'm not based in the Netherlands, so that's great. These closing remarks of ThingsCon have become, I realized when I was quickly writing my talk, this has become one of my favorite little traditions, like in the year. It's such a lovely community, and I feel really grateful to be part of this. We had this before, but can you just show again whose first ThingsCon event this is? This is really amazing to me because there's new people, and this is easily 50% completely new people. This is really, really great because I think we need to really expand this circle. So welcome and thanks for being here. I've been really intensely listening the last 2 days, and I specifically wanted to just be able to actually participate and listen. And my mind is still kind of reeling from 2 days of conversation, and I learned so much. And I'm naturally a shy person, but this leaves me super energized and super thrilled to be here. So ThingsCon, as you've seen before this morning, has been having one goal all along, and that is to promote a responsible and human-centric IoT, and all the kind of technologies that are adjacent, let's just say. AI is bleeding into this, and smart city stuff is bleeding into this, and where do you draw the line? It's kind of an academic decision only, but we will stick to the roots of IoT. We do this, as many of you know, by running events like this one and a bunch of smaller salons, because that's where you can really share all the stuff that works and doesn't work, and you can find a shoulder to cry on and learn together. That's important. We do publications like the Riot Report that we just learned. We sometimes do our own research or partner with other organizations to do research. Currently working with a think tank in Berlin to figure out the more ethical stuff around AI, but also we're training partners in the Open Dot research program, a PhD program at the University of Dundee. We have 3 students who had workshops here. Can you just quickly raise your hands? I see Jens, I see Sarah, and I think Kayla might have not be here, but 3 out of the 5 students who do this are here, and this is an amazing kind of extension of our network, and we're super thrilled to be part of this. And also to a smaller degree, we do advocacy, right? So we talk a lot to people, to policymakers and others to just advocate these better ideas. And I think organically we've I was thinking about what makes this community different than others, and I think these are the things that I think have organically kind of started happening. It's a really critical crowd, but not one that just says this is bad, but there's a spirit here of proposing better approaches, which is really nice. It's very constructively critical. It's all about building bridges. It's a very interdisciplinary community. Should probably be still more interdisciplinary, but there's a bunch of academics, there's a bunch of designers, there's some entrepreneurs. There's not enough anthropologists, although I met someone yesterday who is an anthropologist and made me very, very happy. And also it's ambitious in the sense that you grow with the challenges you pick. On one of the first ThingsCon events, we had Bruce Sterling give a keynote, and he kind of very kindly, in his slightly kindly, grumpy way, said, this isn't the slickest event. It wasn't. I was one of the organizers. It was not a slickly produced event, unlike this one, which is not organized by me, and so it works. But he said, but you grow with the challenges, and this community picked some really big, hairy challenges and pointed out that it's one of the most interesting communities to watch in the world. And that I found a lot of happiness in this. 2 things I just added because we talked a lot about these 2 aspects throughout the day, and they came up over and over again. First of all, I think we talk a lot instinctually about data about me, about my data, and I think it's a pretty flawed way to talk about it. Data about me is much better. Don't take my word for it. Sarah Gold from the London-based designer research studio Product by If has long been talking about the idea that data about me is a much better framing, because even if you owned your data all you want, if other people can act on it and organizations can act on it and combine it with other people's data and that impacts you, then you can own it all you want. It doesn't have a meaning. And you can opt out of everything you want. If everybody else shares their stuff, you're still going to be impacted. And that's an aspect that's just there's a lot of academic research now happening in this space, and it's really fascinating. And also in the same like building on the same idea. Martin Tisney, who runs a charity called Luminate, also has like an amazing piece in the MIT Review like a few months back called the Open Data Bill of Rights, and I highly recommend reading it about the aspects of how individual rights are not that powerful when we think about the impact of data, but collective rights really are. That's just as a shout out. And the other thing, Kranzberg's first law of technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And I think that's a reminder for all of us, because it's like it always has an agency of some sort and enables some things and doesn't, and disables or like prevents other things. So that's just very briefly as a reminder, because I think it's important to remember this. Just 3 things I kind of want to talk about very briefly. About like where we stand with IoT. We've been doing this since 2014, and a lot of people in this room have been thinking about responsible tech for way longer, right? But 2014, it was the year that we started ThingsCon to kind of use it to discuss these under this label. So I think the debate and the tools to build stuff have been maturing a lot since then. We have better and more respectful products. Not many, but it's getting there. And I think it's also responsible technology has become a real societal and political priority. So what do I mean by this? So the debate is so much more mature today than it was like even like 2, 3, 4 years ago, because there's so many horrible scandals in the last few years, and that really crises kind of tend to promote, good discourse for what it is. But also this debate has led to much better tools, not just technological tools, but also analytical kind of frameworks. Some that I just wanted to quickly shout out, like the 2 at the top, is .Everyone, a British charity that has been doing amazing work. Rachel Caldicott and her former team, like she just like ended her tenure as CEO there, but they've been doing amazing work across a great range of areas, from consequence scanning, like what could my technology, what kind of impacts could they have, could these technologies have in certain settings. They've developed better approaches to public procurement, which is in the EU, I think like 16% of the EU's GDP is public spending. That's if you can get that right and dump it into better products rather than buying crappy products for all of us, that's, I don't know, like 3.3 trillion or something, I think I calculated at one point. But also capacity building for policymakers, because policymakers often get a bad rep for not getting technology, and that's changing fast, but also we need to engage in different levels and meet halfway to work together. Also, Simply Secure is an amazing, I think it's American nonprofit, but Amy, who is their design director, I believe, has been a ThingsCon fellow for a long time, and they have been building steadily over the last few years an amazing knowledge base for best practices around UX and security, and it's all free and available online. The links are on there. This is really great stuff. And of course, we also have our own Trustable Technology mark, like a small contribution that we put together that we're still slowly evolving. I'm just saying all this because really small groups can have a really big impact, and we're not a small group anymore, so that's really powerful, I think. And as an addition to this, I think we've also been seeing a bunch of like new mental models developing on how we discuss these things. Again, Rachel Caldicott from .Everyone just published a fantastic talk called Just Enough Internet, where she argues that a good path forward might be to think about anything to do with like public service, internet-y kind of things, including smart cities. A restraint for data collection could be a really strong model, as opposed to getting more data and more personalization, just do less, and that could be really, really good. There is a fantastic group made of like 4 nonprofits banding together that have been developing this vision for a shared digital Europe, which sounds incredibly dry, but I promise it's not. They essentially say in the EU, we shouldn't just focus on what the EU calls a digital single market, which is the market lens and everything that has to do with like digital in the EU level of policy, but rather we should like strengthen the commons and empower public institutions, which is a complete like reversal of the model we see today. Instead of like gutting the state and hollowing out public institutions, we should like strengthen them and make them really powerful counterweights to the market. And also, I think transparency without accountability is nothing. And like you'll notice that industry and lobbyists they love transparency. They'll offer anything in terms of transparency because that's the easy part. But accountability for what you do, that's like a much, much harder challenge, and that's what we, I think, should argue for. So better and more responsible products. I think we do see a growing demand and a growing market for responsible technology, even though that's moving a little slower than I'm always hoping. And I'd just like to highlight 2 examples from one company because I think they illustrate that point a little bit. So Sonos, the connected speaker company, started offering microphone-free speakers this year, which is really amazing. Everything had microphones. It was Alexa ready. That was the selling point. And they kind of reversed it and also specifically advertised it offering microphone-free speakers that are great. So that's the thing that was kind of unthinkable, that you'd like start offering the same stuff, just like strip out the hardware that could be abused. So that's pretty good. And snips that have come up as an example a few times in the last couple of days. There was a French startup that built a privacy-first voice assistant. And they were one of the first companies to receive the Trustable Technology mark for their approach, and Sonos just bought them. And that means that they can offer soon like voice-controlled speakers with a microphone, but also without sharing data. I have a little more mixed feelings about this because, as Davide pointed out yesterday, we just learned that also means that Snips will stop offering a bunch of the DIY capabilities. And we have to figure out like what that means for the trust mark. But that's something that that's a learning curve for us more than for them. I guess we need to figure out what that means. But the idea that you see a connected product companies stepping back from collecting more data and specifically advertise not sharing data, I think that's really, really powerful. And we don't get paid by Sonos. Like there's no, this just happens to be an example that I'm aware of because we personally switched to those speakers just because they didn't have a microphone. And then I think responsible tech really has bumped up to the top of the discussions in the last few years. Policymakers are all over responsible tech now. There's political support for stuff like slightly obscure but really powerful stuff like platform regulation to rein in Silicon Valley corporates in a way that was unthinkable 5 years ago because these companies used to be innovators and now they prevent innovation primarily. Every government, national, European, everyone has been working on guidelines for developing ethical AI, and Europe is trying to establish itself really hard as a strong player in that space. If Europe is in any position to do that, that's a matter for debate and research. But it's interesting to see that this values-based thing is that's become a new policy priority as a unique selling point for Europe. And then smart city policy, again, super obscure, but IoT in the public space is what I would define as smart city, has suddenly become a really hot topic. And I've been spending so much time in meetings around smart city policy ever since we launched the Trustable Technology mark, which was made for consumer electronics. So it doesn't really work, but a lot of the questions are the same. Only in public space, if something goes wrong, it goes wrong for everybody and really badly. And so we need to be 10 times as careful, 100 times as careful as if people opt into using a Fitbit. And that's a major change, right? And we just got a new European Commission last week, and they made getting these things right a policy priority along with fighting climate change. That is huge. Could backfire horribly, but the impulse is there, and that's it's certainly going to have a massive impact, and it's an opportunity I don't think we've seen in a long, long time. And so, not to be overly dramatic, but a little bit, because it's closing remarks, and that's allowed. I think we're changing the world a little bit, even though it may not always feel like it, because we all in this group, we kind of live 5 minutes in the future, in a sense, and because of the roles we either have now, or for the students, the roles you'll have in just a couple of years, we are hugely and disproportionately influential if we notice it or not. Just because we're pretty far upstream in the process. We're the ones who help, design processes, design projects and products. We help shape the thinking in that space. And over time, that has a huge leverage by the time it trickles down into the actual things that hit, everyday life. And so by advancing these design practices and the research and the awareness and the overall debate, we're all having a massive impact together. And so keep, like Alex said, keep sharing the work over and over and over. It's really important. As Marlene said this morning, you need to be kind of brave to stand up for your values. So let's do that. We can do that. It's not going to hurt us, not really. And you in this room are really usually shaping this field in ways that not many people can, because they don't have those backgrounds, they don't have the mandate that you have in your daily roles. And frankly, I couldn't imagine a better group for it. And for that, I would just like to thank you all. Thank you.